Yeah, I've only been part of 4 IMOs in my career. If you don't know what an IMO is, it's an insurance marketing organization. It's basically just a company that holds, I'd say, really good insurance contracts, and they just give you better compensation. They kind of take on the risk. That's the reason why they give out better compensation. But what they don't tell you is most of the training, and if you've watched any of our podcasts before, most of the training comes from your boss, your manager, which gets paid overrides on you. So of course they're going to teach you how to write policies to where the most amount of commission is made. And if you try to go over them and you talk to the carrier, what do? The exact same thing. Real quick, I had a lady. She was part of an insurance carrier, and I was like, "Hey, what's this? What's that?" I had just read 3 books on cash value life insurance, and she just wasn't very knowledgeable, that or she was doing it on purpose. To be honest, I think she was doing it on purpose. There was even a button on one of the illustration softwares. It was like, click here and you'll get a 7702 rating, and I'm like, okay, I know what that is. Click. And she goes, what'd you do that for? I was like, I want my client to have the most cash value. No, that's not what that button does. Well, after doing some research and then running 100 illustrations, I was like, yes, that's exactly what that button did. But anyway, I don't want to get off on a tangent. What we're trying to do is just let everyone know these MLM IMOs are out there doing to people. Like, it's insane. It's been happening for 20, 30, even 40 years at some of these IMOs. The crazy things they do. David's about to like release some Illuminati stuff on you here in a little bit. But yeah, I've only been part of 4, and I think all 4 of those you were at. So
Yeah.
luckily, you were the guy that I was like, I don't want to be part of that dude's organization. He's slimy, and then ended up being forced into it. It's probably one of the best things that ever happened. But no, man, even today alone, just one more quick example. A guy had sent me his illustration for some cash value life insurance. And I was like, hey, your name is B.D, right? And he goes, yeah, it's my initials. And I said, no, you're not putting $730 a month into your policy. He goes, yeah, I am. That's what I asked for. I sent him a screenshot. It was $6,583 a month. And I was like, 730, and he goes, yeah, 730. I was like, look, and I showed him a full illustration, 79,000 or 72,000 or something like that, 79,000 per year. He's like, no, that's not what I wanted, and it had him paying it till age 120. So I say all this to say, like, this client thought he was about to go sign the paperwork for a $730 a month retirement plan. That's what it was for. It was his sole retirement plan because he went from a bricklayer in a union to being his own bricklayer. So this guy that works with his hands all day long, sweating, bleeding. I've done brick, I've done masonry work. It's probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do, especially in the hot states. And he was about to blow every dollar for the next 40 years, no cash value, no growth, no nothing, all because some MLM life insurance agent was taught how to run illustrations. Hey, click this number in this column, put his name here, click illustrate, show it to the client, show him how there's value and there's life insurance, and then just go sell it. So this guy was going to make like uh, probably a $50,000 commission off of this product, and that guy was going to lose every dollar he ever put into it. So that's the whole reason why we do this podcast. It's the whole reason why this episode is so important. Is I just kind of show you the I want to say a bad word, would say the tomfoolery that's in the MLM world. So you've been part of the great WFG. I don't even know if we can say names. I don't care anymore.
Probably
I'll
bleep
let you kind of, yeah, I'll let you just kind of start where you started and the crazy things that you've seen.
So just to piggyback on what Dustin was saying, and this is, if this was a small problem, we wouldn't talk about it so much. But again, another example, we remember that dude who we chatted with. He's like, "Oh, I want to do $20,000 dump in to my policy," and he was going to do the second year's premium. And we're like, "Okay, cool. How much premium are you going to do? 150 a month." Like, bro, your policy set up for 20 grand for the next 30 years, and he said, "No, it's not." I said, "Bro, it's right here on your illustration." So he literally had to go file a complaint with the Department of Insurance because that's not what he told the agent. So it's just, if it wasn't a problem, we wouldn't talk about this so much. But the big problem is just lack of education on the agent side, and you're duplicating a bunch of people who generally there are probably some good people out there, but the masses just generally don't know what they're doing. And especially when you're dealing with, gosh, MLM in the insurance space and you're dealing with people's retirements, holy cow. In my opinion, that is far from a structure that should be appropriate in the market. Is MLM is great for skincare, it's great for proteins, but again, financial products and dealing with people's hard-earned money, you better be careful who you're writing up, because if you're writing up some government workers, I mean, man, they're going to find you and they're going to come hurt you. So the reason I talk about this so much is because I was at one of those companies. I was very fortunate that my upline was securities licensed, and a lot of the stuff that I did learn was because he kind of unveiled the curtain and said, hey, don't believe everything you see. Like, he was a very trustworthy guy, and I'm very grateful that a lot of my warm market sat with him versus other people, because I looked at the policies and I'm like, actually, you did do a little bit more of a max funded design, or hey, you did do it a little bit better for the client, or he did use some different products annuity wise that back then I had no idea what it meant, but it was way better for the client than him. So super thankful. His name is Oak, just by the way, if he ever sees this. So, but the funny thing is a lot of different things that they say are normal in the MLM world, in the insurance industry, are just not. I mean, there's one thing that I saw. When you're new in the business, you're typically dealing with newly licensed agents. They, have a full-time job. They're getting into this business for the first time. You typically go on what's called a field training appointment with your upliner manager, which is a great idea because you want to get experience and learn from someone. Like, we do the same thing over here. So it's not that the principle is bad, but what they do in those MLM models is, because the compensation is so low across the board, they say, hey, you actually have to give up your warm market or give up your market to your upline. They're going to go sit with all of your warm market. And here's the kicker. You're not supposed to do it while you're licensed. So guess what? You don't get paid on it. And it's actually a privilege to go get your upline paid and get your manager paid. And that's how you're going to basically pay for your training. So you don't have to go, spend $50,000 on college. Like, the way that they angle this stuff is just so manipulative that you think, man, I really should do that. Like, I'm super grateful to these people. They're making millions of dollars, which they're not. But they're making so much money and they're taking their time out of my day. I need to be grateful. So that was the first thing that I saw. Was it's called the market exchange at all these companies. Is you give up your market once, and then guess what? When you go recruit other people, you get to pillage people's markets for all eternity to kingdom come. So it's like you give up to go up. That was one of the things that we saw over there, was the market exchange. You don't even get paid on that warm market. And then guess what? All of these people at the very high heights of these companies, they know the statistics. They know that if someone gives up their 10 warm market appointments, guess what? They're probably going to quit the business after that. They're probably not even going to stick around because they gave up their whole warm market, and now they're not going to be able to recruit, and it's going to be very hard. So it's just really sad the way the model's set up. Is it's meant to kind of prey on new people who don't know the industry, in my opinion. And any person who is decently high level or wants to be high level is not going to stay at those companies very long. Because going into the other thing that we're talking about is you don't own a single piece of your book, right? Like, I don't think people know what LOA, direct contracts are, or IMO contracts. So let's talk on that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, if you don't understand what he's talking about, warm market and upline. So warm market basically means people that you know. You go find all the people that you know. You pull out your phone book, all 300 people, name numbers in the CRM. Let's go pester everybody to death. Let's go sell them a bad policy. And then whenever you finally get licensed, you have no one else to talk to. And they're all mad at you because you sold them some policy they didn't need. You pushed them too hard. They don't want you over for Thanksgiving and Christmas, all that good stuff. And your upline would be your boss. So your boss comes in and says, give me everyone you know. Let's go sell them all. Hey, and now go recruit. So now you have to go recruit the people that you know, unless you go buy leads. So yeah, and as far as the contracting goes, man, I tell people this, and it was the lady that we just brought on 1 day ago.
Mm-hmm.
She told me that she worked for 6 months to get a 50% contract, which, if you don't know, that's actually pretty good for these IMOs. It's not good at all, but for IMOs, it's really good. These MLMs. She said she pushed and pushed and pushed, got her 50% and left, and now she feels like she's stumped. Has nowhere to go, has to start from the bottom. And I was like, hey, we start at 75, and she's like, how's that possible? How's that possible? I said, well, if you know anything about MLM contracts, direct contracts, a direct contract, if you just go to some carrier, you could get what's called street. Street could be anywhere from 30 to 105%. Just depends on what the product is. There's some whole life products that street is like 40%. So if you put $1,000 of commissionable premium in, you would get a $400 commission. If there was $1,000 commission at 105%, you would get, what is that, $1,050, $1,050. But contracts for IMOs can go up to, the highest I've seen is 180%, I believe. So, there's $1,000 of commissionable input. $1,800 is paid out to the IMO. So I'm the IMO. Fisher writes $1,000 of commission. He's at a 25% contract. So I give him $250. I get to keep the rest. All $1,550 goes to our account. So that's how we give bonuses. That's how we give vacations to France. That's how you get marketing dollars. All that good stuff is I literally stole 70% or 80% of the income you should have made. But yeah, you know a little bit more about contracting. I mean, you basically built this thing from the ground up recently. So
Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, we're trying to cater to people who've been in the industry a while, not necessarily new agents. So we want to make sure we're paying people a fair wage based on how much production they do. But what I saw at a lot of those companies, they start you off, like you said, at 25, which is, in that example, I mean, the IMO is making more than the person's making, which is just bananas to me. It's like there should be no world where the person who's doing the bulk of the business and you're offering no system, like you're offering no leads, not really training, not really product, you're not really offering any of that. You should not have a company making more unless there's a really disproportionate value proposition. So what I saw was a 25% comp to start, and then you could get up to like 60 or 80, depending on the carrier at the highest levels. And then that's where they had what was called like a builder's compensation plan, meaning, which again, this is as good as I do. You can have a builder's comp at any company. Because if you are at 130, 140, guess what? You could put your people wherever you want that you think is fair. And then guess what? They'll probably stay with you a lot longer because you're not pillaging their comp and being disproportionately unfair and paying them more. And guess what? They're going to stay with you longer. So a lot of these companies say that they're builder comps. All that just means is it's a really, really low comp, and you have to recruit and build a huge agency to get all the bonuses that go into this big bonus pool at the top to be able to get that top comp of the 130, 140%. So those were just some of the things that I saw. But again, like Dustin said, one of the other practices that this breeds from what we've seen, and I'm trying to speak facts, not opinions. So if any of this is wrong, please check me. I probably guarantee you it's not from what I've seen personally. But when you have a really low comp, guess what? If you have a 25, 30, 40% comp and you're splitting business with someone because you're not really educating yourself, let's say you're at a 50%, theoretically, 50%, and then you split it with your upline, so you make half of that commission. So it's technically a 25%. There's no way you can max fund a policy and make that be a living in any world, because in your warm market, you're probably going to be doing, if you're good, like 1 to 2 policies a week. Probably, like, right? That's pretty fair. I mean, holy cow. So it just breeds a model where you have to write the cases at target because you have to make sure you get paid. Because if you did write it at the max funded, you would need like 8 different jobs. So that's just what I saw. And then typically the other thing that, again, those cultures I'm not a huge fan of is they start talking way more about the cash flow and the agent's success than the actual client success, which that dude who was just talking about yesterday to you, we were on the phone with him. He said, hey, I reached out to you because you really want to focus on educating the clients. And that's what you talk about. You've never mentioned how much money you've made. Like, you don't post about how much your agents make, right? So it's just interesting that outside in, you could very quickly see what's important to a company is it making the agent a ton of money, or is it building a long-term brand, making sure that we are teaching sound strategies, making sure the client's in a better situation. Than long-term, it's obviously going to be a slower path to wealth, but long-term, you're actually going to have something that people desire. So that's just one of my huge things that I hate seeing, but it's marketed all over. We had 100 grand month, 80 grand month, they made their first 30 grand month, and then they're posting online the policies they're writing, and you're just like, dude, you're going to get sued so quickly. It's nuts.
Mm-hmm. You're giving away all the, I'd say illegal. You're giving away all the stuff that you should not be doing. So like there's a guy, his name rhymes with Mom Shike, bald guy, runs one of these MLMs, and he was doing some,
I was like,
yeah,
oh.
I'm sure you know now, the gravelly voice. He was doing some hoorah with a bunch of like 20-year-old new life insurance agents, and of course he was trying to act like he was in the club. He was the leader of the fraternity. And he was telling everybody, hey, at the end of the day, you have to, it's your business. You have to make money. So if you're at a downtime and you have to go, sell 50 of your family members and you have to make a little bit bigger of a commission to keep your doors open, go do it. And he said that, and I don't know if he knows it was being recorded or if he just knows and doesn't care. And then another one, probably the newest MLM out there right now, they're doing a lot of interview style uh, content on social media, and they're always like, what do you like most about this industry? And they always talk about their self. Or, hey, why did you get into the industry? It's like, hey, I wanted to make a lot of money. Or, what's your favorite part about the industry since you've been promoted? Oh, recruiting. It's never like, how do we help clients? How do we educate clients? How do we educate agents? And I'm the complete opposite. So whenever I look at that stuff, I'm like, what? Like, what goes on in their mind? How in the world can they just wake up every day and say, hey, let's go recruit? Because to kind of go back on comp, some of these comp models, you have to sell like $100,000 of target commissionable premium in a month, and you have to have thousands of downline, thousands, like 4,000 downline, write 100 grand a month personally. And I'm like, you understand the work that goes into that, how much manipulation you have to have, how many chicken seminars you have to do, how many cold calls they're doing, because I got cold called the other day. One of my downline got cold called by this company, and they're like, oh, we started this compensation and this is what we provide. It's the best technology. It's financial freedom. And it's all the same thing we've been hearing over and over. Well, every time I get a call like that, I end up recruiting the person that calls me because I tell them my story and kind of how I am. And they're like, how do I get into that? I mean, we recruited a guy once. It's probably one of the worst things we ever did, but all because they don't really know what's out there and they're being brainwashed. That's all it is. It's just brainwashing. It's crazy. The MLM is just like the Illuminati. Like I said, if you don't, it's these shadow organizations where it's like, hey, drink the blood of the leaders. And some of these people have never even sold a product. All they've ever done is just recruited. Like, hey, my friend made $1 million last month. Okay, cool. I want to do that. Come on over. We'll throw you in at 25 comp. You'll start out builders comp, blah, blah, blah.
And
Anything else?
I was just going to say too on that, my definition of a MLM organization is you have to recruit to hit your promotions. Because like, let's say for us or, a lot of the independent space, they don't care how many recruits you have. They care about your production. Like we have a friend who does pretty high level planning. And what did he do last year on some pen? Like 25 million?
Yeah, 25.
I mean, that was between him and maybe one other guy that was helping him with case design and stuff like that and high level planning. So the whole reason I say that is if you have to recruit to get your higher promotion levels, that by nature is an MLM company. So if you have the production and you're a stud, you're like, hey, I just don't want to deal with people. You could be doing millions of dollars a year on your own pen, but you'd still be at a 25% comp because you haven't recruited anyone. So that just becomes very disconnected in my opinion. But the other thing that I was going to say quickly too is one of the biggest red flags in this industry. And I love leadership to death. You need to have leadership skills. You need to have all that. But if they are saying we are a leadership company, we love leadership, all we ever do is we grow leaders, we build leaders, like all this stuff, bro, I hope that is as transparent as it can be, but I've seen time and time again where they talk more about leadership and how great leadership is. Not a single time have they talked about how great it is for the clients, how great it is for the solutions that they provide and all that type of stuff. So that's just one of the big things that I see when someone ever talks about leadership on a podcast for the reason that they're at their company. I'm like, bro, if you only knew the stuff that your leader had done to get there, my goodness.
That goes on to the next point, which sometimes I wonder if you're kidding, but I know you're not. I don't even know how you say it, but I'm going to say it the way I hear it. Giving your wife up to your upline. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
You mean like the whole principle of just giving to get up?
What do you have to do to get to the next level type thing?
Oh, I mean, obviously that's we're not technically talking about giving up your wife, right? But like the whole idea of those companies is they have all these exchange principles. There's the market exchange. There is the oh my gosh,
leg exchange.
The leg exchange. I forgot about that. So I'll give you a very direct example. My upline, who I became very close with and was grateful that he trained me, you get to what's called a marketing director level. And then to get to a senior marketing director level at the company I was at, I think it's still the same at all these other companies, I would assume, because they're all just the same. And before I get into that, they're all the same 3-letter companies. They just get rebranded. Back in the day, it was like in the 80s, it was one company. Then guess what? 10 years later, it was another company. All the dudes just moved over, called it something else. Moved over, called it something else. It's the same thing for the last 50 years. And guess what? There's just another company that's a 3-letter word, and they're doing the same thing that they were 80 years ago. But instead of term insurance, guess what? It's permanent now. Like, it's the exact same stuff. So just blows my mind. But you had the exchange principle of the leg exchange. If you were a marketing director, you wanted to get to senior marketing director, they word it in a way where it's a privilege to give up your biggest leg to your upline. So Dustin, let's say you're my upline's upline. If my upline wants to get to SMD and I'm his biggest leg, he basically has to say, hey, I'm giving up my biggest part of my business, which is usually about 50% of their production on average from what I've seen, give it up to the upline. So he now overrides it, and he overrides my team for no longer. So he spent years and years and years, or months and months, building out this team that's doing really well, educating them, just to be like, I'm going to hit my 12-point, 15-point promotion to get to SMD. And now you're broke almost every single time because you give up all the overrides and all the business that comes from that leg. And guess what? You start from ground zero again and building it up again. You have to recruit. You have to do. And what they say is, again, guess what? You know why it's so great? Because you only do it once, and then you get to receive it for the rest of your time.
Yeah, you do it and it'll be done to you. I looked up top 10 top 10 points of a cult, and number one is absolute authoritarianism without accountability. So tell me you haven't seen something like that in every single MLM financial space. There's always some authority figure that can say all the wrong things in the world. Like, once a podcast, say something wrong. Once a training, say something wrong. And when I mean wrong, I'm not like saying life insurance wrong. I'm talking about just in general, like, diddles, kids, whatever you want to say. And they just let it go. It doesn't matter. I would just kind of go through a few of these. So zero tolerance for criticism and questions kind of ties into number one. You don't get to question your upline. You don't get to question why they are writing all target cases. You don't get to question why.
What do they call that? What do they call that, though? You remember?
Authoritarianism? What do you mean?
In the MLM world, they call that, you need to be coachable.
Coachable, yeah. And I'm sure you've heard that a bunch. A lack of meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget. What does that mean in this realm? It means you don't know what comps are. You don't know where your overrides are coming from. There's a guy that I've been trying to get out of the MLM world for over a year. And he's the balding guy. We all know who he is. And I tried to tell him how comp works, how carriers work. He's like, oh, generational overrides and, bonuses and trips. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool. You're at 45%. You get 10% bonuses and you get trips. That's maybe 60%. You're leaving with your production. You're leaving 80% on the table. So you could double your income tomorrow if you would just leave your little IMO MLM. So again, and this one, I'll just kind of leave it with this one. Unreasonable fears about the outside world that often involve evil conspiracies and persecution. So it's like, don't listen to the outside world of what they're saying about us. We know within our culture that we're doing, this correctly. With 600 people at a men's retreat, sitting around a fire, praying to God about, how he's blessed us in our finances and stuff. Don't even get me started there, because once you start bringing religion into MLMs and life insurance and anything in general, and unless you are a church, you do not bring religious anything into anything. If you're a car salesman and you're like, hey, you're buying this because God wants you to have this car, not the way it works. And you've probably been through a little bit more of that than I have, but on social media with these 3-letter agencies recently, they're like, hey, what's your biggest driving factor? It's the 3 F's, faith, family, fitness, or faith, family, finance. And it always starts with faith. Like, God let me be here. He took me out of that phone booth. He took me out of that ticket booth. He got me out of my 9-to-5 job where, I hated myself and I couldn't really just grow as a human being. God. And man, I talk about God all the time on my page, but it's never to promote anything. It's just like, hey, if you don't like me and I put up, Matthew 5:16 on my stories and you unfollow me, it was meant to be.
Yeah. I was just looking up the other exchange principles to see what else. So here you go. I found a list. I love that this is all online. There's what's called the personal sale exchange. Forgot about that one. So Dustin recruits me into the business. And the way that they position this, I do agree with this to some degree, but you should have life insurance if you're selling life insurance. Like,
Right.
I fully agree with that, because if you're telling people to do something you don't even believe in or have, like, there's some disconnect there. So when you come into the business, you get recruited. The first thing that they do before anything is you get your own personal policy. So guess what? Dustin comes in, he signs me up, and he makes commission off of that. That's called the personal sale exchange, because now when you recruit people, or I recruit people, now I get to go write all of their personal policies and make money off them. So
In the warm market.
hence again, you have to recruit to get business in this model. So personal sale exchange, we have the market exchange, which is where you get trained in your own market, because those people are probably going to be a little easier on you than cold market, which that is 100% true. But you give up all of that commission to your upline usually. You have the promotion qualification exchange, which again is, like I just talked about, to get to SMD, you give up your biggest leg. You have, let's see, the nobility exchange. What the heck is that? I'm going to just stop reading these, but
Nobility sounds awful.
you give up your nobility. I don't even want to know. But again, our whole point of saying this is, like, we're not trying to bash. The reason we talk so much about this is because I was at one of those companies and I saw what was made important was not the client and not the client experience, nor the client's money. That's why I started leaving the company and starting to do my own thing and learning a little bit more, which is what we're passionate about. Is because, again, my personal story was I had that warm market experience, and I was lucky that my upline helped a lot of my family in a good way. But I don't ever want to see another insurance agent harm a client in that manner. That's why we talk about this so much. Is the more we talk about it, the more vocal we get, the more people Dustin gets messaging him, hey, this is my policy that was written incorrectly. And we can save them from having to go write it with someone else who's going to completely screw them over, which is 90% of the industry probably. That's why we are so vocal about this. So we're just trying to make sure that it doesn't happen to any agents, because a lot of agents get out of the business because of the terrible experiences they have. And just because they weren't with the right company or the right people, you can make a great career out of this. They just kind of get tainted, if you will. Like, I've seen multiple people I've talked to this year because of the experience that we had last year. They're like, dude, I was about to give up on the industry. I can't keep doing this, because they put their faith in people and then the people just completely screw them over. And they're like, you know what? I don't care. So that's what we're trying to be passionate about on the agent side, is we want to make sure that never happens, to make sure people get taken care of and actually be profitable. And the client side, right, is if we're putting the clients first and actually showing how to make their situation better, we're never going to be hurting for business long term. So that's just why we're so passionate on this.
Yeah, for sure. One last thing on that, you brought up people sending, their policies over to me showing zeros. This is set up incorrectly. My first 45 minutes on the phone today had 2 people send over policies that were all zeros in the cash value. One lady, she said she wanted to become her own bank to her advisor agent. She was 36 years old, putting $150 a month in. If you know anything about insurance, that's about half of what she should be putting in. And there was zero value for 4 years. And on the, well, you always say this, on the guaranteed side, it will lapse in 16 years. And if it will lapse on the illustration, something's wrong. The guaranteed should carry it at least, throughout the lifetime. But with that being said, just from my experience, I'll kind of give you a high level and I'll just call it quits. Whenever it comes to the MLMs, the big bosses, there's like 5 of them out there. You kind of know their name. If you don't, you can ask me about it. I just won't say it on here. Most of them are drink the blood of the leaders, hoorah, go recruit, sell everyone everything we just talked about. And then you have like the sect in the middle of 50 to 500 agents, and these smaller, we call them MLMs, or we'll just call them IMOs. What we have found, and I'm not saying this is everyone, in that area, most of the time it's everybody does well. We all kind of drink from the same pot. We all just, believe in this vision. Well, all of a sudden, 2 or 3 people will kind of take off. They'll get up there. And what will happen is the owners of the IMO will start to kick them preferred leads. We'll start to kick them higher comps. We'll start to market directly to their face within the company. And what that does is it shows, hey, look, they did it. Now you can do it. But we're going to give you the harder path and not tell you. We're going to give you the bad leads. We're going to sell them for twice as much as we should. We're going to give you recycled leads, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time, that's what happens. And then there's like the smaller organizations from 10 to 200. A lot of those, I would say almost all of those are the better ones. And I'm not saying you should just go join those, because most of the time they won't have training. They'll only focus on final expense, they'll only focus on mortgage protection. They only sell IULs. Like, to me, if you only do something, you're selling a product, you're not finding a solution. So that has been my bread and butter that I found. Like, honestly, I'd be on my own if it wasn't for David. I would just have my own contracts and disappear. But again, like, the value that's provided in these smaller organizations where you can be, you go to a small company, you work for a small company, your boss can actually train you, they'll talk to you, you have a more family friendly environment. It's what the MLMs try to push, but it's impossible. You can't push a family environment with 30,000 new agents. And then if you see all these promotions of, like, this is the last thing I'll say. It's not the Andy Elliott thing, but I swear this is the last thing I'll say. Whenever an MLM says, hey, we just recruited 25,000 people in 6 months. Cool. The next week, they're like, hey, we did 52,000 policies in the last 6 months. What did David just talk about? Giving up your, you go right, your personal legs. Like, hey, I'm going to bring in 26,000 people that are married. Everybody writes 2 policies on themselves. 52,000. It's simple math. Oh my goodness. We just did 52,000 policies. Congratulations. No other business. So the grass is not always greener in these bigger companies. And honestly, if you're trying to be a professional, if you want to be like the next big thing, I'm not saying the Dave McKnight, Doug Andrews type thing, but if you're trying to be independent, your own person, your own advisor, you shouldn't tie your existence to a company. Like, I don't want to go and say, hey, look, I'm Dustin Wiley. I work for World Financial Group. If you want to be your own company and your own firm, you've got to be your own company and own firm. Most people want to tie themselves to a bigger corporation because it provides value that you haven't earned. So, like, hey, I'm a Primerica agent. I work for Primerica. It's this huge company that's on the stock exchange. That's the company I work for. That's why you should work with me. At the end of the day, I can't tell you if one of my clients knows where my contracts come from, because I don't push myself as ABC advisor. I am Viking Financial Group. I'm the owner. And if that's what you want to be taken serious, and you want to grow a big company and you want to grow a brand, you can't tie yourself to someone else.
Yeah. What I've learned in the last year too is if you don't control your business, meaning you don't have a way of controlling the leads, you don't have a way of controlling really anything. That's what happens in a lot of these other companies is you say, hey, I'm going to use it for leverage because they're bigger. They have all the systems. You're going to think yourself, just build it on your own. And you're going to have way more control and freedom doing that and way more success if you are actually the person who's an entrepreneur and wants to do this long term. If you're just wanting to make some money part-time, don't do that. You're going to waste your time. But every single person I've ever talked to that wants to do this long term, you need to just start building it yourself, because I guarantee you're going to be 5 years down the line and then we'll be looking back, man, my whole business is at this company and I'm trying to leave. Guess what? They own your business. You don't own it. You can't leave with it. So you're going to be starting over. So you might as well just start and do it on your own from the beginning. Learn it the hard way, but I guarantee you it's going to be way more fruitful than having someone else have their hands in your business and controlling it and saying what you can and can't do.
Yeah. If you're watching this and you're an agent or an advisor and you kind of want to get into the group, we have a group called, I call it Why Coaching Group. That's like my dad's nickname back in the military, but it's a why lie about what you do? Why not be the best you can be? Why not write the correct policies, get the referrals? If you want to learn how we do all this stuff, go ahead and join that group. We have a Slack channel where we put up recordings every week. And besides that, see you guys next time.